How many of you have actually experienced what you believe to be true trauma? And how relative do you think trauma is? Do you think people experience it differently? For example, we hear the stories and we can only imagine the possibilities of some of the trauma that we hear that took place during war, took place during violent sexual crimes, and we can imagine some incredible things. So here's the question I want to ask. Is trauma relative, and does it only exist where we allow it to exist? That's what I want to explore in this particular podcast. Because one of the hardest things to accept is that trauma, pain, suffering, no matter how real they may still feel. They only exist within the mind. And because they exist within the mind, I believe we have the power to change their impact. There was an episode I saw with regards to 9/11 where it was Netflix. It was an episode on Your Mind Explained. And so it talked about what we remember and how we pull back memories from distant periods or from even more recent periods, and how what we bring back is different from what actually truly happened at the time in which we were there. And so we create pictures and understandings of what actually happened, or rather what we believe happened, as opposed to what truly went on at that event. And there was one particular young lady who was talking about remembering her mom in that particular day, and she was imagining her mom being at school where she was teaching, and the school was right down there near World Trade Center. And she remembers the event of thinking about her mom and what her mom must have experienced. And it was only after the fact, when she was having a conversation with her mother, when her mother actually said, "No, remember, I wasn't teaching there. I was at a completely different school altogether, not even in the area." But yet the daughter had imagined this, had created this understanding in her mind, and therefore it became her reality. And so when she thought about it and she felt that visceral response from the emotion of going back to it, it was actually something that she was creating within her mind, as opposed to something that actually had happened, had existed. But modern psychology, it often tells us that healing requires revisiting these pains, these sitting through it again and trying to relate to it, to deal with it, processing it through. But what if the very act of doing that actually keeps that alive? You see, with neuroplasticity, the more we focus in on something, the more that something grows, the more that something becomes stronger. And if we keep giving that something energy, then our past traumas, for example, we reinforce them and we carve them deeper into our neural pathways. And yet, here's the thing when we revisit those points over and over again. The fact that we only have roughly 370 to 400 calories available each day for thought. That's pretty much it. Basically, if you can imagine that we consume roughly 2,100 calories a day. If we only have about 370 to 400 calories for idle thinking, for creative thought, for reflexive thought, for emotional thought, or social, being around people and having the conversation, having the thoughts that we need to create with regards to being in that type of an environment, then that's a lot of energy that we have to have available. And here's the thing with energy, especially when it comes to, well, any type of energy, but especially mental energy. Each day, each time we go to sleep, outside of everything that takes place within our brains during the process of sleep itself, we've left that energy on the table. We've consumed all we're going to consume of that 370 to 400 calories, even more, for example, in the days when we're studying, students in school or whatever task we're trying to work our way up towards. But if we're letting part of that 370 to 400 calories of potential go, then it's non-renewable, which means that next day, that energy from the prior day is no longer available. We're starting with a brand new bank of energy for that particular new day. And so when we talk about those different types of activities that we think about, if we're giving any of that 370 to 400 calories to any thought that is taking us back to a negative, where it's not adding value to our lives, any thought that's causing us emotional distress that's not adding value to our lives, any thought that does not help us dig out of the situation that we may be in or propel ourselves to the next situation that we want to be in, if it's not adding value to our lives, we should not be giving it energy. And if we're thinking about it, reflexively going back to it, continually running it through our minds, then we're making it stronger. But in addition, we're sacrificing opportunities that are available to us, to everyone. So I thought about doing a podcast on trauma and on how it affects us. Because here's the thing. I think we can all say that we've all experienced trauma in one way, shape, or form if you consider it's the emotional response to an experience that having prolonged effect. And because everything that we've experienced has created us into who we've become, those negative experiences have also produced the outcome of who we are today and have created or formed the mental models that shape what we know and can understand. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, for example, the trauma that he had experienced with regards to what he had been through within his lifetime. And when he was telling me this, I was thinking about the movie Lion King. And I was thinking about the episode with Rafiki and how Rafiki is, how Simba's talking to Rafiki, talking about what he had thought he had done to his father and how he was ashamed and how he was terrified. He did not want to go back. And he kept recalling those thoughts, the trauma that he had experienced back during that time. And you remember what Rafiki did? Rafiki grabbed that staff and slammed him on the head. He stopped and he said, "Wow, what did you do that for?" And Rafiki said to him, "It doesn't matter. It was in the past." In the same situation with my friend. It doesn't matter about what our lives have been through, what the traumas we've been through, how we've experienced things. The only thing is how we move forward from day onward. Because that energy that we're dedicating to those thoughts is holding us right there. Now, why am I talking about this in an episode related to creativity? Again, there's only two ways that we can create. We can procreate, we can give birth to a child, or we can create mentally, we can give birth to an idea. And again, the creation of an idea requires energy. And if we are giving energy to areas that don't add value, then we're taking energy away from our creative process. But just one more point to bring up there, though, with regards to pain being within the mind and how it applies also to the physical side as well. There's a movie on, or there's a mini-series on Netflix right now, and it's called Primal. And it's about a woman, her child, who's trying to get across from the Boston area over across the country, supposedly to meet her husband, but she's being pursued and she's being chased after with a bounty over her head for the killing of, well, I don't want to give too much, but nonetheless, she's moving out. She's getting help from a mountain man who sees that she's in danger. And this mountain man, you'll see, has been through a number of different events where he's being chased, he's being hunted down, he's in serious fights with bears. I mean, this guy just goes through it all. And it seems as if this man just gets up, cut up, torn up, shot up in every which way, and he moves forward. He does not even seem to exhibit any type of showing of what he's been through when he comes out. And no matter what he goes through, he moves forward with energy and with intention, and he doesn't let anything affect that journey or his path. Now, I say all this, and of course it's a movie, but I say all this because I'm thinking about one particular episode or scene where there's this, the boy, he's on the back of a horse. The horse is lame. The horse is going through a terrain where the horse is getting cut up even more, and they're knowing that this horse is going to fail. But the horse fails. The horse steps on something, goes to his hoof. The horse reacts violently, throws the boy off the horse, kicks the boy in the head, and kicks his leg in such a way that it fractures it miserably. And this boy is screaming out his lungs as that horse is going through its own separate trauma and pain before the horse is finally shot. And as they approach the boy, and this mountain man comes over and he's grabbing the boy and he's holding the boy, and the boy is just going through this horrific event continually over and over and over again in his head and feeling that pain. And the mountain man says to him, he gets his attention, and he says, "It's just pain." He calls that to his attention. It's just pain. And the reason why I say that is because pain is also part of a conscious recognition and understanding. It's a way we're perceiving what we're sensorially feeling from the standpoint of whatever is being cut, hurt, or whatever in which way. It's being translated into our mind as being something even more impactful than pain. Now, we have the ability to control the impact of pain on our bodies. And we can see that through, if you can think about what was going on, I don't know whether it was with the Khmer Rouge over in Cambodia, or it possibly was the Buddhists protesting during Vietnam War. But they would go into the streets and they would take gasoline and they would pour it completely over their heads. And they would set themselves on fire. And they would stay in that position until their body finally toppled over. But they would not show any expression of feeling any type of pain whatsoever as they went through that event of burning to death. And so we say pain, the physical aspect of pain, we can see with regards to the way they treated it, and obviously the way where this mountain man treated it, it's all in the mind. And if we can understand that, even when I'm doing my workouts nowadays, when I think about what I'm feeling, and I'm starting to recognize the fact that it is all in the mind. And as long as I'm physically okay and I'm physically not being hurt by what's happening, such as the boy being continually kicked by the horse, once that stopped, and once the boy was able to recognize the fact, because of his prompting, that it is just pain, and I can gain, therefore, more control over how it's going to affect me and how I'm going to feel that pain, then it gives us a tremendous amount of power from the standpoint of being able to direct that pain, even that energy, and perceive that energy, that pain, in a different way. So, thank you for coming into this, again, episode of Think Different Nation, the Steve Jobs Playbook. And my name is Ty, and I bring clarity to the obvious. Cheers.